Look at him, eating whatever he wants, never gaining a pound. While I'm stuck with the boring special and can't lose an ounce.
How's your lunch, man?
Amazing. Yours?
So good.
Oh, I'm so happy for you.
Cool, buddy.
Weight loss isn't fair, but Mochi Health is. The affordable GLP-1 source that can fix your frustration with food.
So, same time next week?
No!
Definitely.
And your friends. Learn more at joinmochi.com. Mochi members have access to licensed physicians and nutritionists. Results may vary.
Now streaming. Disney Plus invites you to go behind the scenes with Taylor Swift in an exclusive 6-episode docuseries.
I wanted to give something to the fans that they didn't expect.
The only thing left is to close the book.
The end of an era. And don't miss Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour, the final show, featuring for the first time the Tortured Poets Department. Now streaming, only on Disney Plus.
All right, so we're back, Partners in True Crime. We're discussing again the Steve McNair murder, and we have a very special guest on, Jay McWilliams. James, we met through a mutual friend of ours a couple weeks ago, and he started telling us about, and he came over for dinner, and he started telling us about his extensive law enforcement experience in California. And so we started talking about the McNair case, and I was like, wow, I'd really like to have him on the podcast to discuss this. You know, someone who really is not immersed into this case, but someone from the outside who has a wealth of knowledge in law enforcement, both in, you know, street patrol and investigation and private investigator, and would love to get your perspective on this. So Jay, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Hey, it's my honor. I you know, just in the short time I've known you, I have a lot of respect for you and Cindy, and I love what you guys are doing.
Fantastic. So Jay, why don't you tell a little bit people about your resume? Tell us your resume in law enforcement.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in the Central Valley. I graduated high school in 1989. I served in the United States Navy until 1994. From there, I was a deputy sheriff for about 1 year, but I worked the jails. And then I transferred to Vice PD, where I would spend about the next 24 years. So, you know, I did 8 years in patrol. I did 4 years in gangs. So I'm a court certified gang expert. I was a school resource officer. I worked detectives. I handled financial crimes, juvenile crimes. During my whole career, I responded to about 100,000 calls for service. I wrote about 10,000 police reports. I've arrested about 3,000 people in my lifetime. I hold a bachelor's of science in criminal justice management. I also hold a master's degree in education. I have a teaching credential. I'm a licensed private investigator. I'm currently a host of my own podcast. It's called Street to Strategy on YouTube. And I'm an author. My first book is currently on Amazon. It's called Welcome to the Show That Never Ends. And my second book will be out in June.
Nice.
Fantastic. It's one hell of a resume there, bud.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So great. So amazing resume, amazing, 100,000 calls. I mean, that right there that's a huge number there.
It's massive. And you know what? I mean, with the, Vice, we're, for the large part of my career, we were probably 135, 140, 140,000 people, but it's not uncommon to go to 30 calls in a day, arrest 10 people. We're going to have a lot of gangs, a lot of drugs, a lot of homelessness. So, I mean, we have a lot going on, and the Central Valley period is it's a busy area for crime.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into the McNair case here. I know you started looking into it after we had a conversation. I mean, pretty much a lot of people know about it. I mean, we knew about it in the cursory, but when we started diving deep in there, when we talked to the family members, because that's how we originally got involved in this case, and started talking to them. There's a lot of, I mean, we're not law enforcement, but we've been doing this long enough to understand that. And the big thing that I thought was interesting is that they closed the case after 4 days.
Yeah, I will tell you this. Going through this investigation, 2 words really jump out at me: not impressed. Okay. And I hate to be critical of law enforcement because, I have law enforcement etched into my bones. But I will tell you this, 4 days for this investigation. When the truth is handled carelessly, everybody pays the price. And unfortunately, in this situation, the people that paid the price is the McNair family. Okay. A couple things stuck out to me really quick. First of all, Neely, who initially shows up at Steve's house, okay, he should have been put in handcuffs immediately. Okay. He's there with a pistol that is not registered. And what you do is the difference between a good investigator and a great investigator is a good investigator asks people questions. A great investigator puts people in a position where self-preservation and the truth have to go hand in hand. So also, he goes in there, looks around, and doesn't call 911. The first thing I would have told Neely was, your arrogance offends me. I flat out would have said that. I also would have said, I would have took him in there and walked me, showed me what you touched, show me which rooms you went in. And I'll bet you dimes to donuts, he walked around looking for probably cash or valuables. That just stuck out to me, Next, he calls Gaddy, okay? Think about this. Gaddy and Steve had already had the following out because of the missing 13,000, right? There's another word for that. It's called embezzlement, okay? And another thing with Gaddy that really stuck out to me is this. He goes, well, I didn't know anything about this cat house that Steve had. That's what he referred to it as. Number one, then how'd you know how to get there, right? Number two, when Neely called Gaddy, what was said between them? These investigators, there's a million questions that they did not ask. I would have took both of them in there and had them walk me through every room that they touched, everything that they did. And Gaddy's another one. In my mind, it looked like this. Neely and Gaddy conspired, tampering with evidence, tampering with the crime scene, right? Gaddy shows up with a loaded pistol, acting like Barnaby Jones. You should have called 911 on the way. Number one, Neely should have called, but he didn't. Gaddy should have definitely called on his way. But what does he do? Go over there, and then there's about an hour gap from the time that the body's found until they called 911. Unacceptable. That should never happen. I would have came at both of those guys hard. Both of them would have been in handcuffs. I would have hooked both of them up, because you start doing that, people start talking. Okay. The worst part about this whole investigation that stuck out to me is Gilliam, right? The one who sold the pistol to Jenny. Okay. First of all, I would have ran him, made sure he didn't have any outstanding warrants. I would have ran a rap sheet on him. I would have showed up at his house. I would have put him in jail immediately. He's a convicted felon in possession of a firearm, right? Then I would have taken him to the station. By the end, all three of those guys, they would have started talking. But, it's like, I felt as I watched that documentary on Netflix, and what really upset me is the investigator Robinson. He's just letting all these people lie to him, and he's not pressing these people. Like with Gilliam, there was something that really stuck out. Did you know this girl that you sold the pistol to? No, I didn't know her. Okay, well, now we know that's a lie. There was 206 text messages between them. I would have had him do this. I wouldn't have showed him a photograph. I would have been like, what did she look like? I don't know. She was white, black, Hispanic. How tall? What car was she driving? Where did you meet her? And then I would have put him in a car, drove him to where they supposedly sold this pistol deal, and found out if there's cameras, witnesses. There were so many things that they did not do. Another thing that I don't know if has ever come out, did they ever do nitrate testing on her hands to see if she had even fired a pistol that day? There were
that was a question I had, because we had worked with someone on another show about ballistics and just the gunshot residue that became a huge thing in the trial. It was like the gunshot residue. There was nothing. The way that she should have been covered in it, right?
100%. If you shoot, like, when we would arrest people supposedly for firing a gun, we literally would put a paper bag over their hands and then tape it and seal it and then get them to the station. And then we would do a nitrate testing. There was so, and also, we talked about this, a 4-day investigation. Nobody was breathing down those investigators' necks. They could have taken 2 weeks. They could have taken a month. They should have pulled every thread of this investigation. And the fact that it was not done is an injustice.
Well, what was interesting is that they after 4 days, they concluded it was a murder-suicide, but they still questioned people.
Yeah.
They still questioned people, and they didn't, so I thought that was kind of confusing. On our last podcast, we actually listened to some of the interviews. There's a gentleman, a former, you saw him in the documentary. He was a former police officer at Nashville, Vincent Hill, who's a private investigator, but now he's a journalist. And but he's uncovered a lot, and and he knows how the system works there. And there's a lot of other apparently law enforcement officers in Nashville. Either I don't know if they're still currently there, but there was a lot of problems with internally and how this case was handled.
It's from the onset, you got to think, you got a high profile guy like Steve McNair, right? Loved in that city, right? And obviously a celebrity. When you get those cases, right, you have to take the celebrity part out of it, but it's a major aspect, because what you have to do is do this. These investigations have to be slow, methodical, and meticulous, because this, it's going to be scrutinized more than just Joe Blow citizen, right? Think about this, 17 years later, we're still talking about it. So that in itself is proof. They should have slowed that investigation down to just a slow investigation. They should have been as thorough as possible. That way, when all said and done, they could be like, we took this investigation in every direction it could. We came up with this. I think it just looked to me at the end, they wanted this to go away, and they just put out this quick statement. It was a murder-suicide. But there was just so much stuff. And, even on that documentary, Hill was right. There was a lot of things that just do not add up to me. Like, the minute I start watching stuff like this, I put my cop hat on and I start looking at it. What would I do? I mean, I was 15 minutes into that documentary and I was already frustrated. I was like, why did they do that? Or why didn't they do these other things? Why didn't they should have pressed these people hard, you can't just go to people and go, yeah, did you know her? No. Okay, that works. Nuh-uh. If they could have went to Gilliam at the beginning, think about it, they would have showed him 206 text messages. Do you know her? Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, they even like literally 26 days or 20 something days after they decided when they claimed it was a murder-suicide, they went and they questioned Gilliam's alibi, who he said he was.
Oh yeah, he said it was all a lie because so they started punching holes in his story.
Well, then his alibi basically says no, he wasn't with me. He goes, I don't know him well enough to lie for him.
100%.
So they shredded his alibi.
I just think, well, here's another thing. Gilliam could have went to jail for not only the loaded pistol, but how about this? Delaying, obstructing a peace officer in the performance of his duties, because he's lying. They caught him in multiple lies. But it's very hard to go back after you've already let somebody go and then go back and now try to re-interview them. You have to put people in a position where, I used to tell, I had a canned speech I gave people, and this is it. If you lie to me one time, if you lie to me to protect somebody, if you lie to me to protect yourself, if you lie to me because you can't stand to tell the truth, you're going to jail. Mm-hmm. And you know what? You have to say it like that. Here's the problem. I'm a private investigator now. And the problem with being a private investigator is we don't have powers of arrest. We can't search people. We can't search cars. We can't search homes. A private investigator has to do a lot of surveillance. That's how you get intel on people. But at the end of the day, though, I just think Robinson, if that was the best that they had to give on this investigation, that was a major mistake. they should have had a top-notch investigator, an aggressive investigator who was not going to give up until the truth was exposed. Because go ahead.
I was going to say, why do you think that they concluded this so quickly? And that, I mean, because it's like he is a high-profile figure. I think that probably was I don't know if they were getting pressure from the NFL or their pressure from that. I mean, because they wanted to. This is after, obviously, the OJ case. And, it's like anything that related to something like that. Next to the OJ case, I think this is probably one of the more highest profile, like, NFL murders,
Agree.
So,
you know what? And it's kind of funny. Look at the similarities of the OJ case in this, right? Just shoddy investigations, I mean, it's like when you have something like this, especially, if we specifically the McNair murder, if they would have taken a month, nobody would have said anything. People would have understood. Hey, they're trying to do a good investigation, but 4 days, you're not going to uncover everything. And obviously, look at all the stuff that's come out after the fact, and it's sad because I just think if they would have had a better investigator, I think that more of the truth would have came out. I think definitely Gilliam would have been the linchpin, and I think he would have provided. And think about this: he gave her a loaded pistol. He's a former convicted murderer, and they're like, "Oh, he gave her a gun. No big deal. Let's all move on." No.
She's also a victim here. This is the thing that really disturbs me about this case. Is why I wanted to do it. Is because for all these years she's been labeled a murderer. Correct. They're saying she murdered Steve McNair and then killed herself. And I don't see the evidence pointing in that direction. Where's the evidence that proves that?
Yeah, I didn't either. And, I mean, there was a part of this too. I mean, obviously, it's a cautionary tale if you really think about it, right? A guy with millions of dollars in the banks leaves his wife, has this mistress, and then all these things happen. I don't want to blame victims. But let's be honest, Steve had put himself in a position that was not good, just being there. In the final analysis of all of it, the part that really sticks out to me is it just seemed, yes, the Nashville PD wanted this thing to go away, and they made a rush to judgment. And when you rush to judgment and you just let people tell these lies and wiggle the way out of it, I think if we could go back in 2009 when this happened and redo this, I think we would have got a lot more information. If a guy like me was investigating that, I would have went hard at all these people. I wouldn't be asking pretty please with sugar on top. I'd be telling.
Yeah, no.
To jail.
Have you ever been in a situation where an investigation took a turn this way, where you were getting pressure from above to either close it when you knew there, just to kind of get it off the books? And because this is what happened. The fact that they labeled it a murder suicide, the alleged killer was killed because they killed themselves, and the victim's dead. Okay. There was no witnesses. So they can kind of wrap this up in a nice little bow, and then there's no trial. There's nothing, there's no expense of trying to litigate this, investigate this. It's all put in a nice box and just put on a shelf.
100%. And, I mean, I think what you said earlier, I mean, there could be some truth to that. Maybe they were getting pressure from, the NFL. Hey, we want this to go away. And, and it's sad because in the final analysis, if you really think about this, I just think they could have let this thing go on for a long time. Nobody would have said anything, but I don't know if it was the higher ups. I don't know if they were getting pressure, but there's just a lot of stuff. It just does not make sense to me as a cop. To answer your question, the one thing we used to say, when I was a cop is this: hey, we're going to lead it where it's going to go. And, it is what it is. And sometimes it's ugly. And you know what? But I would rather have the truth. I know you guys would rather have the truth. Sometimes the truth is uncomfortable. But guess what? If you give people the truth, and if they had done what they were supposed to do in this, and they've done this investigation the proper way, I think we would have a lot more answers than we have today.
Yeah, I mean, because there's so many other things. Because like there was no motive for Jenny to kill him. I mean, they were they were having a relationship. She was actually having a relationship with other players too. So it wasn't like she was. He was, he bought her a car. He was giving her money. So it wasn't like she was, disgruntled at all. And there's nothing in there in her texts or anything disgruntled. Yet, magically she wants to buy a gun that day and then go shoot it. She had never shot a hand. We talked to her former boyfriend who they were going to get married and who basically they broke it off and they still remained friends. And he's like, she had never fired a gun. She didn't even know what a gun was.
That's the thing. Is that even possible? Like, I've been to the gun range. Okay. I highly doubt I would be able to shoot with that precision under those circumstances. She was a tiny girl. He was way bigger than her. I don't buy it.
Yeah, it's hard to say because this adrenaline is something, and I've seen people do amazing things with adrenaline, but what I was shocked talking about that boyfriend was Robinson came at that boyfriend harder than he came at anybody.
Exactly.
And I'm like, wait, clearly he didn't have anything to do with this, but we had people that went inside the house that were just going to go, oh, you went in there. All right. No big deal. You didn't call 911. Oh, okay. I don't know. I just think that this investigation was compromised, I think, from almost the beginning. The one thing I will say that gave me a little bit of pause about Jenny was this. I know Steve was not happy about that DUI she got a couple days before they were killed. There was part of me that thought, what if he tried to break it off with her? What if he was like, hey, we need to cool it off. You've been arrested. I was in the car. I don't need that type of bad publicity. There was a lot of things that could have been said. I don't know if that, made her.
We have all her texts, and all the texts indicate that there was no problems.
Got it.
In fact, she was gonna go hang out with her girlfriend at that time, and then her girlfriend kind of had other plans, and last minute she goes, oh, that's okay. I'll just go see, I'll go see McNair, Steve. Yeah. So it was like, there's no level of intensity about, how it was escalating. It'd be different if there was like reports of them arguing in public and, screaming coming out of the condo, or
even in the text messages. She's 20 years old. If she was mad and they were fighting, those text messages would have revealed a lot more than just like, oh, hey.
Yeah, because there wasn't even anything in there when she found out that, he was talking to other girls. The one thing was, I remember one of the coworkers said something to the effect of, my life has turned to shit and I should just end it or something like that. Did you see that on the documentary? So I kind of thought, could it have happened? Yes. But here's the sad part about this case now. There's been so much speculation, and because the investigation was not done properly, I just think that there's so many things that we will never know, which is a bummer, because again, I think the McNair family deserved a proper investigation. I think that city deserved it because he was so beloved. And I just think that, again, I think that police department clearly dropped the ball.
And Jenny did too. You can't just say this is a murder-suicide if the evidence isn't really pointing that way.
Yeah.
Her legacy as a human being is now she's a murderer. And what if she wasn't?
Yeah, no, I know. And well, and I remember seeing that gun that was completely covered in blood. I don't know if if they were able to pull prints off of that gun. There's so much things that just seemed to me that clearly it wasn't just one decision, but it just seemed like every decision in this investigation almost seems like it was the wrong one every single time.
Well, Vincent he's got all the receipts, and I remember he was talking to us about the police reports, because he's got everything.
Yeah.
And he said that the gun placement had 3 different versions of where the gun was found.
Oh, see, right, that right there, that don't sound right to me. Well, let's just call it what it is. That's impossible.
Exactly.
You know what? It's.
I mean, I can understand how three people can have three different versions of what they see, but at the same point, it's a forensic crime scene at this point. The gun is, even from different perspectives in the condo, you're not going to say, well, it was behind the couch, it was underneath her.
Where's the photo?
Where's the photos?
100%. And even going back to Neely, right, and Gaddy both. Okay, if we three walked into a house right now and two people were shot to death, it's human nature that you're going to go over there and look. You're going to. It's and both of these guys are like, I didn't know if it was Steve. I just saw some blood, or I saw somebody on the ground. I could tell you this. I agree with Hill. If she truly did shoot Steve and shoot herself, talking about Jenny, that gun would be either underneath her, off to the side of her. It's not going to be in three spots. That thing should have been properly photographed. Crime scene reenactments. There could have been a lot of stuff done. Documentation. I just looked at this whole thing, and all of it does not sit right with me. None of it.
Yeah, we've had several cases that we've looked into, and a lot of it goes back to the 911 calls.
Big time. Because,
either they're not called at the right time, or people don't listen to what's on the 911 calls to kind of how much information it actually reveals about certain details of the case. If it's like we had a high speed chase in one, and they actually named the guy in the high speed chase because they knew who he was. But just this one, the fact, number one, it took them 45 minutes to close to an hour after they were on the scene to call 911. I don't know about anything else, but you see someone fall down and hurt themselves in the street, you call 911 right away, and they're to roll up on a homicide scene, and it's your friend. Number one, how do you know he's not dead yet? How do you know he could? Why would
Same with the Noah Presgrove case. They did the same thing.
Why won't you call 911? Why don't you get an ambulance there? Who are you to determine? What are you doing in that 45 minutes to the hour in that condo? I mean,
Yeah, I would tell you, listening to Gaddy's 911 call, honestly, what went through my mind? No matter how hard you try, man, we're not going to give you the Academy Award, dude. That did not sound. And number one, if he had walked in and found Steve, let's say 60 seconds, 2 minutes into it, I might believe that. But this, Neely told him Steve's dead. Then Gaddy drives to the house, then decides to call 911, and then the waterworks start. Didn't sound right to me, man. Did not sound right.
Yeah. No, it does. It definitely reeks.
I mean, in your experience, in anyone's experience, if you see something tragic like that, even in the street, if it's a stranger, you call 911. What are you waiting for?
100%. Well, again, I think that these two gentlemen, obviously we'll never know what was said between them, but Neely calls Gaddy. Gaddy shows up. Then Gaddy goes into that house. We'll never know how long he was in there, but I mean, think about that. If that would happen now, there'd be ring cameras all over the place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we would have concrete evidence. Back in 2009, it wasn't that way.
Well, there was a surveillance camera from across the street before the police show up. There was a black SUV that showed up and left.
Was that Gaddy's vehicle, or
I don't know. I don't know. No, I haven't seen the tape yet, but Vincent told me we're going to probably look at it. That's the good thing. It's just, but I'd love to have you two guys on together to talk about this, because I think it'd be amazing.
I would love to. You know what? I just think, as me being an investigator, I always wanted to give people the best I had to give, because you know what? A lot of times we would. I mean, I've been called on the carpet. Hey, did you do this, Jay? Yes, I did. I've done this. If you do a shoddy investigation like this was, there's a lot of things that can come from it. Number one, it compromises criminal investigations. Number two, it puts the city at civil liability.
Yeah.
And, That's a big thing in our world.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if I had done this, I would not be able to look at myself in the mirror because I would have been completely embarrassed to have my name attached to this, letting this happen. I can tell you this: if they would have done it the way I described it to you, how I would have done this investigation, we would have a ton of more answers than we have today. Because each one of those guys, and then in the spirit of self-preservation, would have talked and would have said something. Because when you start putting people in jail, people want to protect themselves. Gilliam had he should have been arrested just for being the convicted felon in possession of a firearm. They had him on that right there. And the fact that
he admitted selling it to her.
Yes, horrible. And it's like I remember listening to Robinson talk to Gilliam. Yeah, I sold her this gun. Man, that right there, just that one statement, there are 50 questions that could come off of that. And to talk to somebody for 7 minutes, I would have took him to the PD and we would have had a couple of hours talk because there's too much information that could have been gleaned. How'd you buy the gun? Oh, wait, here's one. How'd you buy the gun being a convicted felon from a pawn shop? Here's another thing that really stood out to me. Why is the spokesperson from the PD saying that they had to go through ATF? I'm a firearms expert, and I can tell you this. You get a serial number, you run it. It comes back registered to whoever owns it. We go to that house. They say, okay, I pawned it. We go right to the pawn shop. Okay, I sold it to Gilliam. We go right to Gilliam's. You don't need to wait on the ATF. There were so many things that could have been done, and they weren't. And, man, it's honestly the word I have to use, and I hate to use this word for law enforcement, but it was criminal. I mean, people should be held accountable.
Yeah, and no one will ever, because obviously there's people have moved on in their life. They've retired. People have died. Yeah. That's the problem with these cold cases that, you hope to God that someone speaks up, but, and hopefully we're going to get some more people to speak up about this case because it just doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense.
I agree. There's too many unanswered questions. There's too many things that were just mismanaged by that PD. I'm sure there's different leadership there now, after 17 years. But what would it hurt to give this case to a cold case unit, have them reinvestigate it? There's a lot of threads maybe that can't be pulled now because maybe some of these people are deceased or other things. But there's a lot that they can still try to do. Go back, open it up. Let's get some answers. Let's not have to speculate forever and think about woulda, coulda, shoulda. Let's get down to brass tacks and find out what really happened. But it's sad. And now I think for them, obviously it seems like that police department's been resistant to reopen this investigation.
Well, yeah, why would they? There's no benefit for them to do that. I mean, it's like there's really nothing. If anything, it exposes them even more. And it's probably, because, like you said, it's the city and the municipality there. They're the ones that's going to have to bear the brunt if anything comes out. And if there's a problem, they're going to be the ones that going to be liable. So it's going to come out of their pocket. I mean, if you remember the making of a murder case, the biggest problem they had is the county was afraid that they were going to get sued and they were going to be bankrupt because of this case. And so that's why they handled certain things the way they did. So it's like, it comes down to that. So I don't know what was going on at the Nashville PD leadership at that time, where they felt compelled to really kind of close this thing in 4 days, yet still look into it and question after the fact. They obviously felt that they didn't have everything, and they're just trying to cover, make sure that they didn't miss anything. Why would you? Because they up until December, because this happened 4th of July, they were looking into it up until December of that year.
Yeah.
So why would you do that if everything was closed cut? And
well, and I'm sure, and here's here's something in law enforcement that a lot of people don't realize, and we always say this in law enforcement, but you get east of the Mississippi, law enforcement changes. It's a whole different ball game, especially get deep south, you know. And so I just think there are things that we'll never know, but it just seems to me that I hope that it never comes out that leadership was colluding with people or things of that nature, because there was too many holes left. And I mean, you know, even with Robinson, I don't know the man, but it just seems like he did not do a thorough investigation.
I think it was the pressure. I think they just wanted it to go away. I mean, it's a small city. It's the biggest football player. I mean, the pressure from the NFL probably too. Probably just were like, let's just close this and be done with this, you know?
Yeah, and you're like, well, you know, like you said, Rob, hey, they wrapped it up in a neat little bow. Hey, you know, murder, suicide, that's it. I remember watching on the documentary, you know, they already had it on CNN, you know, already. And then think about this. When Robinson's talking to Gilliam, he shows him a picture of Jenny, and we don't do that. You're now giving him an alibi. You're giving him information to let him wiggle out of it. And I just think out of all of this, you know, and Cindy, I think you really did. I think you're both right. I just think they wanted it to go away, but it's sad because somebody of his stature in that city is killed in such a horrific way. And then we're going to do this quick, like haphazardly investigation. And here we are 17 years later with so many unanswered questions that we'll never know. That is unacceptable, in my opinion.
The other thing, you would think that other people that were close to him would want more answers, like, you know, like his agent, who was his agent from the beginning when he came into the league, and, you know, this agent Buzz Cook, and like he hasn't spoken about this at all. You would think someone that these people that were close to him, and you know, and McNair made a lot of money for this man. I mean, you know, and so you would think someone like that would want to have answers, and he's really never spoken about it, which is interesting. And I don't think he ever will.
And you know what? I wished somebody could have talked to the wife and seen what her perspective on this. Did she want a full-blown investigation, or did she want this to go away?
It's a good question. I think Vincent can probably answer that question, because he was doing the investigation for McNair's mom.
Yeah, the mother. Yes.
So he basically told her, yeah, I'm going to look into, and he's still, I mean, he did it for, he said, you have to pay me something. So pay me $1, you know? So,
very nice.
So he's been doing it for 17 years. He's written a book about it. I mean, when you talk to him, I mean, you can see it's almost like it's a beautiful mind. You can see all the facts and everything coming across his brain. He's so immersed into this, and you don't get that way unless, you know, something's wrong.
Yeah. And I can tell you this, you know, I was very passionate about the cases I worked because, you know, I was born to do this, and it's a gift and it's a curse in a lot of ways. It's a gift because I could go out there, and I was a hard charger and I wanted to get to the bottom of stuff. It's a curse because when you go home at night, you know what you do? You're sitting there thinking, you're going through, should I have done this? Could I have done this? When do I, you know, you fill your cases. And so I don't know Hill, but I can tell you this. I respect the fact that somebody put this much effort into a case that he wasn't assigned to, and he has to come in after the fact. I love the fact that he's doing it for the right reasons, because if you're not doing it for money, you're doing it because you really want to find out what really happened. That, in my opinion, that is something that should be revered and respected.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, but, you know, trying to find the truth is difficult, and people like to shut you down, and they, you know, want to go on the attack, and you're trying to find the truth. We do this all the time. You know, we have plenty of supporters, but we also have people, why are you digging? Leave it alone. And for us, again, it's like you said, Steve McNair deserved a proper investigation, and so did Jenny, because if she did not murder him, then she shouldn't be labeled a murderer. and like no one's fighting for her. Like,
No, I
it's
agree.
really sad.
You know what's sad? When a celebrity is involved, right? Nobody cares about the other person, right? Think about the OJ case.
Yep.
I mean, Nicole Brown was so, they want to go into her background, but I mean, think about all the stuff that comes out. Just because somebody's a celebrity, it shouldn't make their case that better because the other person wasn't. And I agree with you. It's like if she didn't do this, I think a real investigation probably could have got a lot more answers than we did get out of this. But it's sad. And I hate to see things that make law enforcement look bad because I mean, I'm all cop. I love cops. But when cops make mistakes and things are done, then you know what we have to do? We have to be fully transparent and just say, mistakes were made. This investigation was rushed. We wish we hadn't done that, but it did. And, because I just think after all these years, I think that there's so many questions that will never be answered, which is completely unacceptable. Because if I was the victim of a homicide, I would want my case investigated to the fullest extent of the law. That's how I think.
From your perspective, I don't know if you've ever had this happen, but what could possibly open the investigation up? What would they need to find? Would it be like witness testimony, say like someone came out and said, listen, this is not, and they can verify their story? Would that be something that could?
Yeah. So if you had witnesses, obviously some evidentiary things, discovery down the road, that's pretty hard after all these years, but yeah, it would take something along those lines. Somebody coming out of the woodwork, maybe Neely, maybe Gaddy, I don't think Gilliam ever will, but I think that somebody would have to say this. I was not truthful about this. I lied about this. This is what really happened. And barring that those things don't happen, which I don't think they ever will, I think that this PD has already moved on. And I think you're right. I think that they will never reopen this. And it's stuff that makes law enforcement look bad. And that makes me upset. I do not like to see that.
Yeah. As a firearms expert, have you ever trained a small woman on how to shoot a semi-automatic weapon?
I have, and guess what? A lot of times their first couple shots, they're in the dirt because what's the natural inclination, right? I was a firearms instructor too. People close their eyes, right? They don't breathe, right? They go into almost vapor lock, especially at your first time firing a weapon. You have to, it's that old thing, crawl, walk, run. You have to walk people through point A all the way to point Z when you're teaching people how to shoot. If she had never fired a weapon, and especially that gun that they showed, that's not a good brand of a weapon. That's a very low level weapon. But I'm almost with Cindy on this. I would be shocked if she would, unless she just walked up to him point blank range, But then again, did he have powder burns to the face? Did she have scarring to her hands? Because I think, especially with semi-autos, first time people that don't know what they're doing, they'll bite their hand with the slide as it comes back because they don't know what they're doing. And depending upon
what condition the gun is, that thing's not easy to do for a woman. I mean, she's even a well-oiled gun that she was handling, she had a hard time just engaging the slide.
And that gun looked beat up to me. It looked older. And I just remember thinking, by you saying that, Cindy, it really triggered something in me. I would be shocked if she would have been able to get those shots off. I really would. And it would have to be close range. Because, again, she's not doing this from 200 feet away. It would have been right up on them. But I think if especially you fire a gun close to somebody's face, there's going to be powder burns. There's going to be scorching. There's going to be
stippling.
Yes. There's going to be a lot of stuff. And I think that's another thing. One question that you said that kind of brought something. Does Hill, does he have all the photographs of the case?
I think he does. I'll have to check. I don't know how many, but he's got a lot of information. We played some. He even has the other one that we're going to play is Gilliam's interview, which he has. So, but we interviewed some of the witnesses, and we played those last week, and they were pretty revealing. You know, I mean, his Gilliam's own alibi basically said, and unfortunately, this guy's dead now, but his recording, his statement's there, and it's from the Nashville PD, so it's it's legitimate.
Yeah.
And you just hear it. He goes, I'm not, I don't know him well enough to lie to him.
Lie for him? No.
Are all three guys still alive? Is Neely, Gaddy, and Gilliam, are they all still alive?
Neely, I don't know about. Gaddy definitely is, and Gilliam definitely is.
Got it. And I mean, this whole thing, and when Hill said it, it really, I thought he's thinking the right way. Gilliam is the linchpin of this whole thing.
Sure.
They would have got more info from him because they already had him. They should have just showed up and put him in handcuffs. Plus, we don't interview people in front of their girlfriend or wife. Because guess what?
I was like, wasn't that crazy?
Yeah, people are not going to cop to it because guess what? If they would have came at Gilliam and pulled out those, I mean, there's times I've done this because I want to burn the person that we're interviewing, but I've pulled out the text messages because they're lying and been like, and if the wife's right there or girlfriend, well, here you are texting this lady at 2 a.m, wanting her to meet up with you at this hotel. I've done that before. And people are like, hey, wait a minute, officer. I'm sorry I lied. Like even with Gilliam, he comes back after the fact. Hey, I'm sorry I lied, but I didn't want my girlfriend to know. There's no sorries in these. You lied, you're going to jail. I liked how Hill said they should have took him, put him in the room, put on the light and said, we got a gun that's tied to 2 murders and it's tied to you. Start talking.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's a lot of truth to that. A lot of truth,
Yeah.
And the fact that wasn't done just leads me to believe. I mean, I think there was things behind the scenes that we'll never know, but any true cop would have not. I would have not put up with none of those people. I mean, I just think they're all three shady. It just seems shady. Something doesn't feel right. It doesn't sound right. None of it made sense to me. And I think that people should have went to jail that day. I think Gilliam for sure should have went to jail. Gaddy and Neely. Neely for sure. Neely had a loaded pistol that wasn't registered. They could have used that as leverage, and they didn't.
I don't understand. I mean, and I don't know what the legality is. I'm not a lawyer, but it's like when you witness or you come upon a homicide, that there should be a time limit on when you should call 911. Like if you have to call within, to me, it's like give them 15 minutes. Let's say we give like say, listen, because they're dealing with shock, they're dealing with a bunch of stuff. But
we had another case where this kid was lying dead on the side of the road, and all his friends. He was at a party with them all weekend, and then his friends noticed that he was dead at like 5-something in the morning. They didn't call. No one called 911 until someone was driving by an hour and a half later. What if your friend is lying dead on the street? You're gonna wait an hour and a half or an hour to call 911? I don't buy it.
I would tell you this. For me personally, I would have came at Gaddy like this. I would have said, "Wait a minute. You knew that there were dead bodies in that house or people shot." Because Neely told Gaddy that, that's for sure. Because Gaddy wouldn't have went over there without it. Because guess what? Steve had already kind of ostracized him for taking that money. Okay?
Right.
So then he shows up. I think once he walked around the house, found out there was no cash or nothing else, that's when he decided to call.
Or they took the cash because apparently I think there was stuff in the house. I'm not sure. I have to check with Vincent, but I think there might have been a safe.
But what about like if you're a genuine person, right? If you're a normal human being, you call 911 because there's a chance that maybe
they're still alive. Yeah,
they're still alive. How do you know that they're dead? This was with another case. Like, how did you know he was dead on the side of the road? Are you an ME? Are you an EMT? How would you know that just from driving by?
I think I just, in my mind, as I was watching that documentary, especially talking about that crime scene, I remember thinking, both of you gentlemen went in and could have possibly compromised this whole case by walking around and tampering with things, stepping on shell casings, stepping on stuff that you're not supposed to, touching things. And I mean, we've done this many times. We take them right back to the scene. Walk me through every step you took. That way, there is no guessing. We don't guess in these situations. We always say this: I don't want to guess. I want to know. Show me what you did. And people don't like to do it. But I used to tell people, you don't have a choice, right? If you don't want to help us, you're still going to jail. You know what? And think about this: that Robinson could have told from the very beginning, Neely, you called Gaddy, you didn't call 911. Okay, that almost sounds like conspiracy to me.
Yeah.
Right. Two people colluding with one another to come up with some story. They already had him. They could have put him in jail immediately. Gaddy could have went to jail. Gilliam could have went to jail. You start getting people in handcuffs, people have a way of going, you know what, detective, I will tell you what you want to know. And I used to tell people all the time, I know you're going to tell me, but you can't just trust that people, we always say this, trust but verify, right? You're not going to take these people's word in this situation. And here we are all these years later, and we now realize a lot of this was fabricated, Horrible.
Yeah, I know. It's bad. It's bad. And I'm surprised that there hasn't been, I mean, there's been a lot of people have looked into this case, but I don't think as extensively as Vincent Hill, and thank God that he did, because I think a lot of this information would have just gone away. And that's what happens. And then magically, and fortunately, he has a lot of the receipts, because usually on these controversial cases, we've discovered that evidence goes missing. There was a flood in the documents room. There was those kind of things.
Or murder weapons disappeared.
Damage when we were photocopying it. Yeah, I've
exactly.
read that one before. You know what I mean? It's again. I just think that so many people should have been held accountable and they weren't. And now to try to come back after the fact. I think we've already established, I don't think that PD will ever do anything about it. But if somebody was thinking right and going, you know what, let's get to the bottom of this. Let's do what's right. Let's clean this up. I think it would be great if it could be reopened and go back and start really, really interviewing people. Like on a homicide, to interview somebody for 7 minutes, that is unacceptable. Just unacceptable, And we would get them in. I mean, people will tell you stuff without even thinking, right? Because stress is real. And I would sit down with people, and I used to tell people all the time, you're going to have to tell me what happened. And if you don't, I'm still going to charge you. You're still going to go to jail. But think about, none of those guys would want their names out there being tied to the murder of Steve McNair. Those people would have talked for sure.
Well, they are now.
Yeah, but I think it's a very watered down version, I'm sure. I think that also people have time to come up with a BS story, right? That's why you got to get them early or before they come up with a BS story. There should have been, that's why that day, if those gentlemen were both put in handcuffs, I think we would have got 1,000 times more info.
Yeah, and they're separated, and you're telling them that's like
100%. And any cop worth its weight, is good to be a good investigator. Any cop would tell you, we would have not just listened to these guys ramble, make up stories, say stuff, and not substantiate it. I mean, Each one of these guys should have had at least an hour, 2-hour interview, right? Let's establish how you knew Steve. How'd you get there? Like even with Gaddy, I was thinking, how did Gaddy even know the address? He was like, I didn't know that cat house place. Well, did Neely tell him? Right? Yeah. And Neely was the one. I'm the one that put him on that place, right? He goes, let's call it Chilling, right?
Yeah.
Well,
apparently a lot of the team members knew that place too, because it was a crash pad for not just them.
Okay. And so there was just so much that these investigators just went like, oh yeah. And like, even when Neely, he's at the very end of his interview. Yeah, I know a lot of cops. I used to tell people all the time, I do too. That's not going to save you. So start talking, right? What happened? And, it just seems to me, it almost seems like these guys, the investigators, it almost looked like to me, they didn't care. They didn't put any real effort into it. They're just listening to these guys talk. They're not holding people accountable. I would have started from scratch. I would have been like, you're not just going to say something like that. All right. You want to talk about how we got to this crash pad? Show me how you got there. Show me which way you drove, like with Gaddy. How did you get to that location? Where were you coming from? I would have wrote search warrants on all 3 of their phones and said, hey, let's get their phone records. Let's find out what really happened.
Yeah. Well, maybe they did do that, and it's just more of the same.
You know what? I would be shocked if they even did that. I know they had some phone records, but I would doubt. I would have seized their phones. I would have seized those phones. I would have made sure we did a full dump on those phones. It's just sad because there's so many things that should have happened that didn't. And now here we are.
Well, we appreciate your perspective. I think you bring a wealth of knowledge there. And just from our perspective, we're not cops. We're like, this doesn't make sense.
It doesn't. And I can tell you this, if you had any cop on here that's decent, and everybody's going to say the same thing. These guys, Robinson and that other detective, they did not do their due diligence. There was a lot of things that were done improperly or just weren't investigated to the fullest extent.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, I don't like to disparage cops, but I think Robinson was not the guy for this case. And now it shows. It clearly shows. There was, and then you try to go back. When you try to go back and re-interview people after the fact, it's never good because now they've got a time to think, come up with stories, try to make up alibis. I just think everything about this case reeks to heaven to me. And I just think there's so many things that should have been done and weren't. And it's a real black eye on law enforcement.
Yeah. Well, that's too bad, but we're going to still look into it. And
for sure.
We'd love to have you back on with Vincent, because I think you guys could really mix it up there and really kind of give it, because I think this is what this case needs. And so thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Jay.
Hey, anytime. It's been a true honor. I think highly of both you guys. And anytime you guys ever want me to come on any case, the answer is yes.
Thanks, Jay.
Appreciate it. And we'll do the same to you. We'd love to come on yours as well.
Hey, you guys have an open invitation anytime, folks.
All right.
All right.